Sparta was primarily a militaristic state, and the emphasis on military fitness began at birth. After a Spartan child was born, the mother would bathe her child in wine to test the child's health. If the child survived, the father would present the child to a council of Spartan elders called the Gerousia. The Gerousia would determine whether the child was fit to be raised, and if the council deemed the child weak and deformed, the child would be thrown into a precipice on Mount Tegetos. Children deemed healthy would be raised and begin military training at the age of 7 and enter a preparatory program to attain Spartiate citizenship. Spartiate boys entered at the age of 7 and were released at the age of 30. This course was considered violent and sometimes fatal. This program was called the Agagy. Aganis was a training course in discipline and physical endurance that was central to the Spartan state. Boys were fed just enough to never become sluggish from overeating, while also being given a taste of what it was like to be underfed. They were also trained to survive in times of scarcity, even if that meant stealing. In addition to physical training, boys were trained in weapons, reading, writing, music, and dancing. Punishments were imposed if the boys failed to complete tasks. Spartan boys would follow an older male mentor, usually a young unmarried man. This person would act as a teacher, but because of their close relationship, they were often said to have had other relationships. Some Spartan youths seem to have become members of an irregular unit called the Cryptia. The purpose of this unit was to seek out and kill vulnerable Laconian helots as part of a larger program to terrorize and intimidate the helot population. Girls were not given as much attention as boys, and military training was not given as much attention as it seemed, with the focus being on music, song, dance, and poetry, and this education was called musike. In musike education, girls were trained in choral dancing to participate in ritual activities, including the cults of Helen and Artemis. Ancient Sparta was the only city-state where women were educated, and no other city-states had any form of education for women. Spartan boys, when they reach the age of 20, will begin to become members of dining halls or clubs of about 15 members each, also known as syssitia. Members of the group will help each other, bond with each other, and rely on each other. Sparta is believed to be the first city to practice athletic nudity, and some scholars claim that it was also the first city to legalize male homosexuality. Spartan men, after leaving military service at the age of 13, will remain in the active reserve until the age of 60. Men were encouraged to marry at age 20, but were not allowed to live with their families until they left active military service at age 30. When a Spartan man went to war, his wife or another woman of importance would present him with a shield and tell him, "With this or on this," meaning that he could only return victorious with his shield in hand or dead with it. Although the Spartans buried their battle dead on or near the battlefield, corpses were not brought back on their shields. The shield thus symbolizes the individual soldier's submission to his unit, his indispensable role in its success, and his sacred responsibility to his comrades. Comrades, friends, often close blood relatives. The Spartans grew mainly barley, wine, cheese, grain, and figs, and were tended by the subjugated populations in the territory ruled by the Spartans, also known as helots. Spartan citizens were required to donate a certain amount of what they harvested from their land to their syssitia or mess. These donations to the syssitia were required of every Spartan citizen. All donated food was then redistributed to feed the Spartan population of that syssitia. A portion of the harvest was used to feed the helots who tended the land. The Spartans had an unusual marriage custom compared to other customs, i.e., the bridesmaid would take the bride, then shave her head and dress her in a man's cloak and slippers, and lay her on a mattress in the dark. The groom, after drinking and having dinner in the room, will then sneak into the bride's room, untie her belt, lift her up, and carry her to bed. But then the groom will return home and will secretly visit his wife for a while after the marriage. This custom only existed in ancient Sparta. Women in ancient Sparta enjoyed status, power, and respect in the society of that time. From birth, Spartan girls were fed the same food as their brothers. They were free to move around and participate in exercise and sports. What is unique is that Spartan law did not allow a girl to marry until she was in her late teens or early 20s. The reason for delaying marriage was to ensure the birth of healthy children, but the effect was to spare Spartan women the dangers and long-term health damage associated with teenage pregnancies. Women in Sparta were known to practice polyandry, which was due to a common practice in ancient Sparta of wife-sharing, where older men allowed their wives to have children with other men, even unmarried men, if their previous wife had given birth to a healthy child. Spartan women were also literate and mathematically literate, a rarity in the ancient world. They were known for speaking their minds even in public. Most importantly, Spartan women had economic power because they controlled their own property and that of their husbands. Divorce laws were the same for both men and women,